So today we're doing a panel on unlocking innovation by empowering frontline engineers. So I'm the host and moderator for the panel. My name's Beth. I'm the Tulip community lead. But we're going to go ahead and jump in and have our panelists here introduce themselves. If you all could just say a little bit about your background and some of your experience with Tulip and other digital solutions. So Chris, we'll start with you.
Yeah, my name's Chris Puzo. I'm a solution architect at Zether, which is a life sciences-focused engineering and consulting firm. I've been in life sciences my entire career, so it's about 8.5 years now. Always in the industrial automation, controls, data space. Started off, doing frontline engineering, really taking 2 a.m. calls to fix production issues that have brought the plant down. Did that for a number of years, moved on to a global engineering role where I was more focused on implementing new systems, starting up new sites. And now for the last year or so, I've been with Zether, where I get the opportunity to do that across many different companies, all within the life sciences.
Hi there, my name is Kyler Monahan, and I actually am a process engineer at Agility EMS. It's just a small company in Little Canada, Minnesota. So I'm here on behalf of Agility, and as a process engineer and Tulip champion, I brought Tulip to Agility and have championed the entire digital transformation from start to finish, and we just finished phase 1 of Tulip. And that's a big deal for us. It brings us, into the 21st century and hopefully into the 22nd as well in the future here. So, yeah, excited to be here, and let's kick it with the ground running here.
Hey, my name is Darren O'Neill. I work for a aerospace company in Hudson, Massachusetts, Test Devices. It's part of Schenck USA Corporation. We do spin testing on critical rotating components that go into airplane engines, spaceship engines, compressors. We do the spin testing, some machining, some inspection, and some balancing on those components. Before this, I worked at UPS. I was in industrial engineering there, focused mostly on processes, and I carried that into Test Devices. I was brought in specifically to implement some sort of system. Tulip was not in their mind yet. They had no system yet. Through a lot of market research, right? I landed on Tulip, of course, that's why I'm here. Deployed it. We signed up just over a year ago, so I've been deploying the operation, removing paper wherever possible. Other than this piece of paper, I typically hate paper. And it's been a great experience. A lot has improved in the operation in the last year, and it's continuing to grow, and it's kind of endless with this platform, so glad to be here.
Good morning, everyone. So first, I just wanted to say honored to be here as a speaker today at this event. My name is Zach Criley, so I serve as the Continuous Improvement Coordinator at Lista. We're a proud member of the Stanley Black Decker family. Throughout the session, I may refer to Stanley Black Decker as SBD, because that can be kind of a mouthful. I have been working within manufacturing for around the past 10 years, working at SBD for the past 5. We specialize in high-quality workplace storage solutions, so toolboxes, adjustable height workbenches, cabinets, other products along those lines. We serve the industrial market primarily, so things like government buildings, medical facilities and laboratories, other manufacturing sites. Over the past year, I've been spearheading the expansion of Tulip across our site, multiple departments, top to bottom, administrative, down to the shop floor. And I just hope to leverage Tulip to not just solve the everyday problems that I experienced firsthand, because I started my career on the floor in positions like a welder or a tool and die making room. That gave me invaluable insights into how to build solutions to solve those problems, but also drive innovation and digital scalability throughout the entire site. So thank you again, and I look forward to discussing this in more detail.
Awesome. So I'm sure you guys can see we've got a great panel here with a wide variety of experiences, some different industries, different size companies. So I'm really excited to have a great conversation today. So just to set the stage for the discussion, I want to ask kind of a broad question to get going. And this is for everybody on the panel. What do you guys think are some of the biggest challenges facing frontline engineers and workers today? And maybe what are some of the things that have enabled you to be successful in solving these challenges? So Kyler, maybe we'll start with you.
Sure, yeah. So where I work at Agility, we're a contract manufacturer, and before Tulip, on the front line, most of the challenges we face involve speed and efficiency. So we get a product in, and we have a customer who asks us, okay, how long? How long is it going to take? What's your process look like? And without a digital tool like Tulip, that process can look like 2 months, 3 months, up to a year, depending on the product and the complexity. And what Tulip does, and it has empowered us to do, is to take those products and digitize them immediately with your work instructions, whatever quality management you need to do for that product line, and do that efficiently and quickly. So that solves a problem for us, and I assume it solves a problem for a lot of people who are looking to digitize.
Yeah, I would add to that. In my experience, like the timeline thing, even more generally, we've spent so much time reacting to situations, putting out fires, no time to actually prevent fires. And so I think something that has changed in the last probably 5 or so years with tools like Tulip that enable you to get quick wins and build value in the time that it would have taken you just to get started with an old tool. So really, as a frontline engineer, I always struggled to find that balance between keeping the plant running, being reactive to the fires that are in the plant, but also trying to make things better so that I don't have to fight the same fires in a week or 2 weeks from now. And so that was always the biggest struggle, and somewhere that I think platforms like Tulip have driven a lot of value.
Yeah, so I'd agree with both of them on the speed to value. For my industry, the regulated industry, a big problem we were trying to solve is just risk correction? No. Lost my word there, but whatever. Reducing risk throughout the operation, right? So work instructions, extremely critical. We had work instructions, just paper in binders before. They were very rarely reviewed by the operations team, potentially not followed, in a lot of cases probably not followed. Collecting data from the operations team. They were collecting it, writing it down on a piece of paper, hopefully looking at the tolerances from our customers or industry spec. Maybe they weren't. We're not really sure, right? So there we had quality at the end to verify this paperwork, but there's a lot of chances for escapes. So with Tulip, we were able to convert all of our work instructions into Tulip apps, data collection right in the Tulip steps that's automatically validated at that exact moment. And if there is a defect identified either manually by the operations team finding a dent or something, or if it's automatic through the data that they're entering, it can quarantine the part, it can prevent it from moving forward in the process, they can notify quality there's a defect they have to investigate, they can resolve it right through Tulip and get it either back into the process or send it back to the customer or whatever it might be. Even something as simple if we just had to mark the part, and maybe the part number changed, we had to mark that on the forging. Just the ability to say, take a picture of that marking you just did. Right off the bat, they're going to remember they were supposed to do the marking because it has them take a picture of it, and then quality can review that picture without having to go see the part, and then we'll have that record, for years to come. But yeah, so for us, it was all about risk reduction throughout the operation to start, and then we're going to move into the efficiency gains that we've been talking about.
So I think different disciplines of engineering are, of course, going to face different challenges. At my site, I mainly work with continuous improvement engineers, quality engineers, and a core responsibility in those roles are projects, specifically Lean and Six Sigma projects. When you do these types of projects, you need a lot of data. It's got to be accurate, manageable, easy to understand. Our site faces a unique challenge with data collection because we have such a wide variety of product. So in a single department, there's over 1,300 unique parts being made, and downstream they can all be assembled into thousands of other unique configurations. So it's great for the sales team, saying that to a customer, but it presents a unique challenge on the floor in quality and process control because there's so many variables and product families that you have to account for. For example, if you are looking to increase widget output on a particular line, you're going to want to know setup time, cycle time, the demand, So in the past, if we wanted to classify a part as Kanban and decide, are we going to make this bulk for the future orders, we'd be using sales data over a past year, dividing it by number of weeks, get your weekly demand. That was just the average, so that didn't account for random spikes and variation. So now by collecting like live data, dashboards updated every 30 seconds, we have all of the information we need to like drive decisions based on strong data. Tulip enabled me to do this, essentially. Not just on the accountability factor, so we're tracking cycle times, setup times on an individual level, but we also have all of our schedules digital. I have an app called Tier 2 Dashboard where you can type in a week number, breaks down the schedule day by day, cell by cell, department, with a percentage completion across the whole factory. So now supervisors can take a look at that, distribute the resources and people accordingly, push them to the areas where we need the most help. Before we had it, we spent so much time figuring out our current state. By the time you try to fix it, a new problem has already arisen, essentially. These are all things that we knew we wanted, but our ERP system just couldn't do this for us. It would require expensive solutions. So Tulip really has filled that gap for us, and it's growing rapidly. It's been immensely helpful. It's weird to think that we ever operated without it, honestly.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks everyone for kind of setting the stage there on some of what you're doing today and tackling some of those frontline challenges. But I want to briefly touch on what we can expect moving forward, maybe in the next like 5 to 10 years. How the role of a frontline individual might continue to change and evolve as like digital transformation takes hold. So, Chris, I'm curious your perspective on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all about data. It's going to be all about data even more tomorrow than it is yesterday or even today. We're going to see, I think, the demand from site leadership, organizational leadership to get key pieces of data off of the shop floor. And they're not necessarily going to always know what that data is or where it lives or how to use it. And so I think the demand is going to really be placed on the frontline engineers to figure out what are the key pieces of insight into the operation that you can derive from the shop floor? What does that really mean? How do I get it up to the enterprise level where not only I have visibility to it and not just my boss, but my boss's boss, the COO, the CEO. So I think really where we're heading is a very data-centric future. And I think frontline engineers are going to play a very key role in that.
That's a great point, Chris. And I think what you're talking about a lot here is tribal knowledge. And at Agility, like you said, capturing that data is really important to us. And so what we've done, and the best thing about Tulip is you can just do this immediately, is we added a button. You can just add a button. This is not something you could do with paper. You can't just add a button. You would have to update. I don't know. For us, we go through probably 3,000 products a year. And so updating 3,000 paperwork instructions would take months. But we added a button that allowed our frontline engineers and allowed our operators to, at any point, for any reason, they can request a new feature or modify something or say, hey, by the way, this should be torqued to 2.3 instead of 2.5. And adding that ability allows us to update our system on the fly immediately. And sometimes that process, previous to using Tulip, would take a month just to collect the data. First, we would write it on a whiteboard, and then we would take that whiteboard and write it into an Excel sheet, and then take that Excel sheet and break it up per team, and then decide who is going to do what thing at what time, and eventually get around to actually completing that assignment and then updating the instruction and all that. And all that time can be reduced down to a matter of minutes with Tulip, and collecting that data on the spot has allowed us to implement changes and update and improve quality immediately. So I completely agree that the data collection is very important.
Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree with what you said. And even beyond that, like if anybody wants to talk or think about AI, think about data first, because what are you going to do with the AI if you don't have the data?
Start collecting.
Yeah, you gotta collect, you gotta contextualize. It needs to be available. Otherwise, you have nothing to train your language models on. You're not going to be able to do any of the high concept AI stuff if you don't fix your digital and your data first.
Right. Garbage in, garbage out. Right.
Exactly.
Awesome. So I want to take a moment to kind of go into citizen development, because that's kind of like the bread and butter of getting things done on the shop floor, and really putting those closest to the problem, giving them the tools that they need to do their job well. So starting with Chris, I'm curious, what does the process of citizen development look like from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, citizen development obviously is a term that gets used a lot in relation to Tulip and other emerging platforms. To me, it's been really transformative in how I think about solutions, how we go through the process of actually solving problems. And that process really involves pulling every stakeholder in early, making sure everybody understands the problem from the perspective of the operator who knows the process and the equipment better than anybody else in the facility. It's about iterating through these design cycles where you're taking the feedback from manufacturing and facilities, and you're aligning that also with maybe some of the higher level initiatives, goals, KPIs driven by engineering or by leadership, and really just making sure, for me, citizen development is all about making sure that the end user, the end stakeholder, the people who are going to be living with your solution on a daily basis are not only invested in it from the beginning, but are also designing it from the beginning. It's not just this old paradigm of engineering comes in, solves problems, leaves a solution, and maybe it gets adopted, maybe it doesn't. Citizen development to me is really about solving not only the adoption issue at the end of delivering the solution, but making sure that you don't have that issue, because from day one, maybe even before you've fully developed or identified the problem and defined the problem, you've got everybody who has a stake in the day-to-day operations driving development. And that, to me, that is what the core of citizen development is.
Awesome, thank you. Zach, I'd love for you to touch on a little bit about how your work specifically as a citizen developer has impacted your plant and some of the projects you've done with Tulip there.
So it's funny, you call it a citizen developer, but what I find common among the process of developing is it's really becomes a team developer, right? When I started with Tulip about a year ago, we had one department using it. And over the past year, we've been expanding it through all of our departments. I did that with a lot of operator input from the shop floor, group leader input, supervisors as well. The impact that it's had has been pretty great on the working relationship, the trust level between those on the floor and leadership, because by bringing them into app development, they're understanding that their ideas matter, what they suggest is going to be implemented. They're really the experts in what they need. And so it's great that we can build solutions directly for them. I was able to do this while keeping their apps very user-friendly, but also collecting massive amounts of data for leadership teams and whatnot. So like I said in the previous question, that all gets broken down into various visual management dashboards, Pareto charts, all this sort of stuff automatically. So not only is that saving a ton of time on data collection, but it also breaks it down for us into these charts so we can use it in a meaningful way. Big time saver there. Some more tangible impacts, you could say, like time savings, money, et cetera, is by having digital schedules, an operator is not submitting what they've done every day, loading it into an Excel file, taking pictures of everything. That was about 5 hours a week saved. And then I'm currently in a integration process between our ERP system, which is SAP, and Tulip, to take over and automate a lot of the administrative tasks our scheduling department is doing. That's around 20 hours per week, so almost half a head count right there. So it's pretty substantial. And in general, it's great that Tulip is such a flexible platform that we're able to replicate old paper methods digitally. And so I didn't have to reinvent the wheel. Everyone using it was able to adapt to it pretty quickly. And I think it all comes down to reduction of non-value added activities, time savers across the board. Yeah, it's been great. We now have everything we need in dashboards. Operators have what they need to run a factory, essentially, all wrapped up into a single solution. It's been transformative. Yep.
Yeah, I like what you said about the leadership aspect, because I think from a leadership perspective, you're thinking about dollar value, and you're talking about that time saved. And when I was looking at the ROI calculations when I wanted to bring Tulip onto my team at Agility, I knew that this isn't like they said in the across the street today at the HQ when we were all talking to the CEO. We talked about value. Is it just a fancy toy? Is it just, ooh, it's pretty, it's shiny, it's digital, or is it actually valuable? And when I was doing the ROI calculations at Agility, I mean, Tulip's doing the work of 10 people. And for a small company like Agility, that's a ton of value. I mean, that could be $1 million a year in value. And when you bring a tool in, like Tulip, and you put that in front of operators and you put that in front of engineers and you say, use this tool today to replace 10 people and think about what that looks like 5 years from now or 10 years from now, Tulip can end up doing the work of 20, 30 people, 100 people in the future. And that provides millions of dollars in value, not just from an engineering standpoint, but from a quality standpoint, from a sales perspective. We're able to take what we have done and say, now we can do things that are 4 or 5 times as complex and as intricate because we have the tools to do so. And if there are problems, we can fix those immediately versus waiting 2 or 3 months for those to come down the pipeline.
Awesome. Yeah. Great answers, y'all. Thanks for the great discussion there. One thing I was thinking of is, it's great to have citizen developers and have them, working on your shop floor, making great Tulip solutions, but they don't just appear, right? There's some development that's needed there. There's some skills that you may need to learn. And so one thing I'm curious to hear is, how are you and your teams kind of continuously learning and growing and learning these new skills? And, are there any examples of specific tools or resources, training programs, things like that, that you guys use that you find really valuable to enable that skill set? And Darren, we'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, great. Yes, I mean, starting out, right, you definitely use the Tulip University. They have all kinds of great guides in there. I mean, that's where I started. I've onboarded one other citizen developer in my company. We're a pretty small company, so I don't have major governance over like a training program, but starting to develop it as it needs to be more than just me developing for the company. So certainly starting with Tulip University to gain those basic skills under your belt. And then you have the knowledge base for some more specific skills or features that you could tap into in the Tulip ecosystem. From there, the community, once you've kind of mastered a lot of Tulip, the community is great for getting ideas from other developers, helping other developers if they run into any struggles with it, or the other way around. If I'm running into struggles, asking a quick question on there and getting a lot of feedback from other developers. That's a huge resource, and I'm on there all the time. Plus, that's where they post all the updates, and I love seeing all the releases on different features. From there, YouTube. We're all YouTube educated. I have a few YouTube degrees, but there's some Tulip-specific content, but there's a lot that I'm doing using Tulip for that's not specific to Tulip. So, like I have one use case now where I had to learn MQTT and Node-RED using the Edge MC device. Tulip didn't come up with those two things, so YouTube, tons of resources there, and how to implement that into my Tulip apps. So I guess like a specific example, challenged from the shop floor, how do we configure our spin rigs automatically through Tulip? There's like 25 or so parameters that you have to set up in these spin rigs. So in the basic ones just being how fast the part needs to spin, how long it has to spin, how quickly it can ramp up to that speed. These are all set in stone, either by the customer or by our internal quality team. You cannot deviate from them at all. We have the risk of bursting apart, damaging our equipment, potentially a safety concern, but it's usually equipment issue or customer part is destroyed. So these are extremely critical to set right. Right now it's done manually based on a paper checklist. We're converting that into Tulip. We'll communicate through that Node-RED, through that MQTT to set these parameters. And then on the data side, you get everything back from the test rather than a paper printout or a data file saved on a server that you'll never find again. Get it all back into Tulip associated with that serial number, that test. It could be retrieved at any time. So there's a lot of Tulip resources that are great. YouTube helps in some cases. But really, to continue developing that knowledge, just try it. It's so extremely easy to get started, to build an app, try it. If it doesn't work, archive it or tweak it till it does work. It's so easy to try it. And that's the best way to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. Co-sign everything you just said, but like, just try it is a big one. When I was starting to learn how to use Tulip, the feedback I was given when I had questions about like the best way to do something was just try it and see what works. And that is once I did that, I understood why that was the answer, is because I did learn a lot just by trying something multiple different ways. And Tulip, the beauty of the platform is that it's really easy and quick to do that. To add to the community point, the community is fantastic. I mean, in addition to having the product updates posted there, I've revived 2-year-old threads on there with a product question and gotten a response from the product team in like 15 minutes, which I can't think of a single other platform I can say something like that about.
Super responsive. I love that.
Super responsive, even when I'm updating a thread.
I didn't pay them to say this.
Even when I'm updating a thread that nobody has looked at in a year and a half. Super responsive. It's great. Yeah, and YouTube. I've got a couple of YouTube degrees as well. Yeah, it's a great learning tool. And just more broadly, the question I think was a little bit broader in terms of like, how do you keep up with the advancements in the industry, and how do you learn new skills? I mean, first, I keep my ear to the ground. YouTube is obviously a part of that. YouTube is a social media platform where every day people post new things. And if you're looking for it, you will find the new things. And over time, you'll notice that it's not just one person, it's a couple of people. And now, wow, there's a startup company around it. And that's a great way to be keyed into what's going on. And then I said the thing before about just try it in Tulip, but I think that applies everywhere. A lot of platforms, not just Tulip, but Tulip included, will give you a free trial, whether it's like a 30-day free trial or like this expires every 2 hours kind of free trial. It's enough for you to like get in the sandbox, take the toys out, play, see what's real, what isn't, what works for you, what doesn't. And so, yeah, just try it.
I love that. And you're right. You just got to do something. And if it doesn't work, you can just go home and cry and it should be all right. But if that's not your option, I think one of the better options is leveraging the Tulip's 90-day onboarding. And that's something we did at Agility. And, I'm not a programmer by any means, but with the no-code platform that Tulip has, it enabled me to basically become a programmer overnight. And the team at Tulip, incredibly helpful. Teaching from start to finish. They're incredibly patient. We did the 90-day onboarding, and we had 2 sessions a week for 3 months. And they would answer the dumb questions. I would go to them, like I said, when I was crying, when things were breaking, and they would wipe the tears away. And having a team behind you like Tulip to answer those questions using the chat functionality within the app maker, all those features made the process that much smoother, because they could have just sold us the software and said, all right, have fun, go for it. But that's not what it is. It's very hands-on, very supportive. It's a great community.
Awesome. Yep. Do you have anything, Zach?
Yeah, something to say. So, ditto all of that. But in a larger organization, so we have like about 150 folks in our site, but thousands across the globe being SPD. So we have a lot of resources, not just digital and Tulip, but other things to continue with growth, development, increase capabilities across all of our teams. For example, if you are in continuous improvement or quality, you'll be enrolled into a 4-week Lean Six Sigma training program and be required to do a project at the end. What I love about the program is it's not just growing those who are taking the training directly, but everyone involved in a lean initiative. So like when we have Kaizen events, we'll bring those people in from the shop floor. They're getting exposed to the tools that we're using, to this new thinking, hopefully bringing it back out onto the floor and incorporating it into their day-to-day workflow. Tulip itself, got to mention that. Repeating myself here, but it is so true that it's solving problems that we thought were kind of impossible otherwise, or at least would require very expensive, outside of the house type of solutions. And so we can do it all here. So I've been learning this platform extensively. So that's increased my skill set, my development personally, but also the impact on the business as a whole. And you can spread that capability across the whole site, because a lot of folks in manufacturing, they may not be completely tech savvy, right? And so they're getting kind of a demo into the light tech world of just using a Tulip app, kind of empowering them, getting them prepared for the age of digital that we are all in now and continuously going to be growing into. Another digital tool is e-maintenance, so a maintenance tracking software. I'll be heavily involved in this, but I don't really want to take care of two softwares. So I'm going to try to incorporate that into Tulip and replicate a lot of what that's doing for us. I think we can be successful there. Most importantly, though, I think it's important to remember that you still need the right people to use the tools effectively. Any training program, any tool, it relies on the people, and they're going to be the greatest resource always. So I think you can make sure this happens by promoting from within, investing in those people who have already invested their time heavily into the company. By doing this, you are going to empower them and then multiply their value across the entire organization. Just something not to forget, for sure. And I think that will have the greatest impact in any transformation, whether that be digital or something else. No.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think Tulip, we always love to focus on the people side of things. That's kind of the whole shtick. But I think that's a really important point. And one thing that I think is critical from the people side too is also cross-functional collaborations with folks from all over the org, right? We've kind of briefly touched on it so far, but haven't really talked about it directly. So one thing I'm curious to hear from the group is, how you collaborate with teams across your company. And I think maybe we'll start first with Darren on this one.
Yeah, so I think the common phrase, maybe early and often, getting everyone involved right off the bat with a new Tulip deployment or any project deployment, I guess, for that matter. For me, the biggest cross-functional team I would collaborate with is quality, with all of our regulations, again, by our customers or internal or industry standard. A lot of regulations I was not aware of, so getting them involved early so that they're comfortable that Tulip could accomplish that if we set it up properly in the beginning. Huge collaboration was needed there. And then, of course, from the frontline operations teams, they're the ones using it. I think this has been said a few times already. They're going to be using the system day in and day out. They need to have buy-in to it as well. So getting their inputs in the beginning, letting them know what we're trying to accomplish with this deployment, how we're trying to make it easier for them while also improving our business in certain ways, and then continuing to get feedback from everyone as we're deployed. I know Chris has said it's so easy to iterate on the apps you've built, on the system you've built, continuing to work cross-functionally with operations, with quality, with engineering to ensure it's the best solution and it continues to get better as you're adding additional features to it further down the road.
Yeah, feedback is huge. Getting feedback continuously is very helpful.
And I think the last bit, and Beth is paying us cash to talk about the community, but in terms of external, working with external developers, community is the one way I'm doing it right now. There's other opportunities. I think we're all here today to learn from other developers, see what they're working on, and that's a huge part of this as well.
Awesome. So Zach, I'm curious, you come from a much bigger organization. So I'm sure there's things that SBD is doing to kind of share knowledge across sites and globally. So could you touch on that?
Yeah. So we have a lot of resources and outside channels that help facilitate cross-site collaboration. Digital transformation it's so big within SBD right now. We have a whole team kind of dedicated to assist with this called the OpEx team, or Operational Excellence. So they help facilitate those connections a bit. Just on Monday, had a visitor. He was actually in the groundbreaking awards, Dan Farrow. So he came on Monday, visited our site, big plant tour. We shared each other's apps almost all day, and I'm definitely going to take a lot of what he's doing there and incorporate it into what we're doing. On-site visits help a lot, not just occasional, hey, come and see what we're working on, but more formal settings as well. So we just had a Kaizen event surrounding the topic of short and wrong shipments coming out of our assembly department. We have a sister plant in Allentown, Pennsylvania. They make a similar product. So the continuous improvement manager from there came up, just shared how they handle this issue, how they communicate with customer service. We're going to incorporate that into our processes as well. Next week, I'll be meeting with them to discuss their future state of Tulip. So it's just kind of, you scratch my back, I scratch yours. We help each other out. What else we got here? I think with Tulip in general, you can be so creative with it that one person can't really find all of the use cases. So without it, I really wouldn't have the reason to collaborate as much as I am now. So it's been great, and you can do that through the community or events like this. If you can just utilize even something simple like a group email thread or a Teams group chat, once you start sharing what you're working on, the collaboration is just going to happen naturally.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to add to that in terms of cross-functional collaboration, one of the big things that you can do to help facilitate that, especially if you're a company the size of Agility or even a large company and you're thinking about bringing Tulip on, or if you've already brought it on, is just go talk to the sales team, go talk to the quality team, and ask them, what do you do all day? What's difficult about your job? And how can Tulip make your job easier, or maybe cut out some of that boring work that you don't want to waste your time on? So a Tulip can take a lot of those tedious tasks and automate them. And if you are starting from scratch, you can set up meetings with one-on-ones and just ask people, like, tell me what you do, and figure out what those pain points are and try to develop apps to fix those problems. And then a couple years down the road, like you said, you can start to collaborate more and find pain points before they even happen, and solve problems before they come up. So that's really powerful that way.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah.
Awesome. And then Chris, kind of coming from the life sciences perspective, the collaborations with quality and regulatory are super key there. And sometimes we, can see quality as the bad guy, but that's not the most productive. So how have you, dealt with those collaborations?
Yeah, quality is the bad guy is kind of a narrative that I think a lot of frontline engineers have in their heads, and it's not true. Like they are there because they are experts in maintaining the quality of the process and the product. And at the end of the day, they are stakeholders to be collaborated with, not red tape to try to work around. And so when I was talking earlier about citizen development and pulling the operators in, it's not just the manufacturing operators that need to get pulled in. It's also the QA stakeholders. I think Darren said earlier the phrase early and often, and that is absolutely the key to building, maintaining trust with your quality department. Nothing gets done in life sciences without quality's buy-in. It does nobody any good to try to hide the solution because you're afraid that they're going to have some issue with it. No, just work with them from day one. Make sure that all the cards are on the table. Everybody's here to do for the same purpose. You're all here to, at the end of the day, have a process that works well for everybody involved in it, that puts out a good product that helps the world. And that starts with collaborating with all of your stakeholders, quality included, from day one all the way up through post-deployment, ongoing conversations as you iterate to make sure that quality's bought in, quality's happy. And when that's true, everybody's happy.
Amen.
And I would add one other thing, which is to Tulip's great credit, they have a great list of GXP resources to help facilitate that conversation with the quality department. The quality department's going to ask a whole bunch of questions, and Tulip has thought about that ahead of time, and they have put together not only a bullet list of like, hey, this is, if you got this question, this is where you should look for the answer, but also just like general training materials that make sure that everybody's thinking along the same lines. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, we're starting to run out of time just by having the slightly later start, but I want to squeeze in one last question, which does mean that nobody in the audience is going to get to ask questions, but you guys can find these guys throughout the rest of the conference and pin them down and ask them anything you want to. So the last thing I want to kind of leave with is kind of like around organization and leadership culture. I think in manufacturing, there's often this push-pull of firefighting, having to do what needs to be done for daily operations, but then also like working on those like long-term problems that are actually going to make your life easier in the long run. And so one thing I'd like to know from the group is, how is your organization supporting kind of this time to innovate and like spend time with tools like Tulip and solve those bigger, longer-term problems?
Investment is key. Investment not only in technologies, but in people, and investment in training and making sure that you are building an environment where it is okay to fail fast, not in the way that you're going around and breaking a bunch of stuff, but in the way that if you've got a good idea and it has potential, give people the space to explore that solution, quickly figure out if it's got legs or not, and if it doesn't, that's not a problem. You just move on to the next one. And having a leadership that understands that it's okay if not every idea is $1 million idea is key to making sure that the company culture stays healthy, that you're constantly embracing the new, and you're looking for ways to innovate.
Yeah, so I guess I would add to that, ensuring it's company culture, to work with the frontline operations teams, in addition to the quality team, just to make sure that everyone's input is there when you're building these apps, people who are using it, people who need the data from it. I guess I would just add, and maybe it's to the previous question, but for quality, the ability to do things differently. We still have regulations we have to follow, but maybe we follow them in a different way. So everyone needs to be kind of open to understanding what is the root of the regulation or that policy, like why do we do that? What do we need to accomplish in Tulip? Potentially we do it a different way. So I guess the bad guy in quality was trying to stay at the exact procedure we used to do before, and how can we accomplish that differently was kind of the transformation for my company. And I guess the last part is reducing any red tape if possible to make that change. So there's still going to be some rules that have to be followed, but whatever we can do to simplify this, to get that change out there quicker, so then you can iterate on that. I think that's key to the culture of the company to make it a successful transformation.
Yeah, I like what you said about kind of breaking down that red tape as much as you can. And you have to be creative to do that. Sometimes you have to show that you have innovative solutions to an issue. I think we do that by just making an environment that's going to support creativity, it's going to support innovation in general. We have groups such as like a safety committee, employee engagement committee, continuous improvement group. And what's a common theme between all of them is that it's comprised of a lot of individuals, like new employees, long-term employees, leadership. By involving everyone, you just get a unique perspective on the issue at hand and make sure to solve everyone's issue within a single solution. I think when you get a room of people together working towards a common goal, innovation is bound to happen. And specifically when we do that, we like to kind of remove titles, let everyone be in somewhat of a judgment-free zone, let those ideas flow a bit more freely. Even when you try to come up with innovative solutions, firefighting is bound to happen. Like it's just natural. But of course, you try to eliminate that, push lean methodologies out to everyone, get everyone kind of in that proactive mindset, eliminate firefighting as much as possible. You also need someone, though, dedicated to fixing it. So someone in continuous improvement, focusing on eliminating that and focusing more on how do you solve these new issues and whatnot. I think that it's not something that you want to force out of your people. It should be a natural side effect of a team culture, open communication. It's just going to happen on its own if you can provide that for everyone there.
Yeah, I just want to close with, you got to move fast and embrace change and be bold, because you can fix things, you can change things, and you can basically make your dreams come true with Tulip.
Awesome.
Dream maker.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for your time on the panel, and thank you to everyone for listening. Like I said, if you have questions for any of the folks up here, feel free to find them after the session and ask those. Sorry we didn't have time for that today, but thank you, everyone. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.